right. Can everybody see the Apply for Funding website? Great. I see some nods. Thanks for the feedback, everybody. So as you scroll down on the page here, I'll bring your attention to one piece, which is the full grant guidelines and criteria right here, which you can download and review for yourself. All the essential information that we just walked through. You can also click on this Apply Now button, and that will take you to our grant. I think it's our grant interface is the language that pops up in the URL. If you have not created an account to log in, it's pretty simple to do. Go ahead and create an account, and this is the screen that you'll see once you create your account and log in. You'll click on the Apply button. You'll see all the open opportunities through the Montana Community Foundation. So there might even be other grant opportunities that you'd be eligible for and could be worth exploring. But right up at the top, you'll see the Women's Foundation Montana opportunity. These little links right here are the application that we just walked through. And this is the Women's Foundation funding objectives and criteria. All right. And of course, I've already got that up, and I've had it up like 25 times, which is why this is number 7 of the downloaded application. So once you create an account and log into the grant cycle, this is where you'll find the PDF where it walks through the objectives we just reviewed, and then these sort of 4 criteria. But then it gives you specifics around each criteria. And I wanted to make sure that all of you were able to find this document because it's important for you as you think about what information is relevant to put in your application. So for impactful, what we will ask you is, what is the intended impact of the work and how will it benefit women and girls in Montana? We want to know what's your organization's overall purpose or goal, including a narrative illustration of who benefits from your programs. For the purpose of the application, who will be prioritized in the work if it's different than above. Of course, if it's a general operating application, it'll be the same as what you've described in the above section. Where will you do the work and what outcomes do you want to achieve? Again, be sure that you can speak to the Women's Foundation objectives that we just reviewed in that. If your work sits outside of those objectives, definitely give me a call. It doesn't mean you're ineligible, but it's worth having a conversation to explore whether it's worth your time to apply. I want to make sure I don't waste anybody's time. For this section of the application, the committee will then consider these 4 elements, not only these 4 elements. It's, a dynamic process, but I wanted to give you some guidance about what the committee will be looking for. They'll consider the impact of the program. Is it sort of a light touch for lots of folks? Is it transformational for a few? Are you trying to figure out how to scale and replicate a program? So it might not look like either of those things at that particular stage. Is the work intentionally designed to support women and girls' economic security and/or well-being? We have lots of programs who apply to the Women's Foundation, and they can sort of say, well, 50% of the beneficiaries of our program are women. But I think programs have a different impact when they're specifically designed to meet the needs of girls and women. So that's one of the considerations that we take in this impact piece. We want to know, is the outcome to increase access, power, or knowledge for marginalized women? That's sort of the way that we are thinking about, does the work impact or address root causes of inequity? And then one of the outcomes suggest an organized effort across people, organizations, and institutions to change discriminatory practices. And that's one of the questions that we ask to sort of think about, is the work designed to change systems? All of these things do not have to be a yes in order for you to be eligible, but it's one of the things that the committee considers for, are we addressing, root causes of the issue? What's the impact, the depth of impact of the program? Is the organization sort of understanding what upstream solutions might be impactful for the particular issue that they're addressing? Looking at feasible, The application the application question that we'll pose to you is, how will the organization accomplish the stated objectives or outcomes? We'll ask you to please describe the activities that you'll do to achieve the outcomes. How are they strategic for your work? What's the basic timeline? Is it going to be 6 months or 18 months, or is it ongoing work that never ends? And I know that is absolutely how it feels. But sort of put some timeline so that we know what your expectations are for your staff, your volunteers, and your capacity. Share a little bit about the key leaders guiding the work, just the lead staff and the board or the steering committee. Title, brief description of their role, relevant expertise. It doesn't have to be too detailed. It just has to give us an idea of what the capacity is on staff to address the issues that you are hoping to address. And then a brief overview of your fundraising plan or other resources that are secured for the work. The considerations that the committee will have when assessing the feasibility of a project is there a clear and realistic plan? Are there specific activities outlined? Is there a timeline and something that is measurable? Does the team have skills and experience to do the work, or a plan to build the capacity? Maybe the application is for some professional development support so you can build the capacity to do a particular kind of work. Does the organization have stable staffing, an active board or steering committee, and demonstrated community support? And does the organization have adequate resources for proposed activities or a sustainable fundraising plan with diverse funding sources? Moving on to accountable. The question that you'll answer for the accountable portion of the application is, how is the organization accountable to the community that it serves? So share how the people and perspectives of your constituency are included in the decision-making processes in your organization and or project. You'll also complete a leadership and constituency form, which I'll show you and walk you through. And then you'll list 2 organizations that you collaborate with to accomplish your goals. And the committee considerations for the accountable section is, does the leadership reflect and represent the community the organization serves? Is the organization's approach informed and supported by the community it serves? And does the organization demonstrate a commitment to collaboration, partnerships, or networking across issues and constituencies as a way to advance gender equity? Moving on to the last section, this section is equitable. And this is to help the Women's Foundation meet our goal in distributing funding. So how are we positioned to support your work? How are we uniquely positioned to support your work? And so the questions you'll answer for that is, have you secured other funding commitments? Help us understand if your organization encounters difficulties in securing funding due to systemic barriers and or the nature of your work. It's shocking to see that gender equity work is becoming more and more controversial. So I'm sure that many of you have some thoughts on this particular piece, but what are sort of the layers and nuances within that, even that might make your work harder to secure potentially mainstream funding or other types of funding sources. So the committee consideration for the equitable section is, does the organization face funding challenges due to the nature of its work? Is the organization taking bold approaches that requires flexible and values-aligned funding from a source like the Women's Foundation? And does the organization serve communities that are historically economically exploited or neglected? Okay. So that's the review of our criteria. I do want to touch quickly on the feasibility piece. And I know that there can be a big desire to, in the grant writing world, because I face it myself, when we're writing grants to support the Women's Foundation work, of talking about a big impact and then being really confused by funders that are like, we'll only fund you to have this big impact if you're already sustainable and you can prove that this is going to be successful. What a catch-22 to put organizations in that position. So I just want to encourage you to tell us about the reality of your work, what it's going to take to sustain it. I know many of us in organizations that are doing gender equity work are sort of in a defensive position right now. So the idea that advancing many of the priorities that we have been working on over the last several decades, we just might be in a different position to do that now. So I just want to let you all know and have a frank conversation that we encourage you to be honest about the feasibility and what you need to just sort of maintain the programs that you're doing right now, where we definitely don't want to punish organizations that are doing defensive work around gender equity in their community or trying to meet needs that they had been able to meet with other types of support previously, and so are really struggling to meet those needs now. So having a clear timeline of activities is just to get a sense of, again, how you hope to achieve the outcome, but want to encourage everybody not to feel like every grant application, in particularly to the Women's Foundation of Montana, has to be sort of based in always super aspirational stuff. The work feels really hard right now, and it feels challenging to find funding for our work. And so I just want to be really clear and explicit about that. Let's take a look at the application real quickly, and then we'll open it up for questions. Let's see, go ahead and preview. When you click into the application, this is what you will see. There is an organizational cover sheet, which will ask, what is your request? What's the total project cost? Other funding secured? Just super quick little answers, and then a very brief description overview of your proposal. And then we get into the 4 areas that I've just walked through. These mainly, they're just open text boxes for you to cut and paste, maybe potentially writing that you have from other grant proposals to put in here, to format and play with the space that in a way that hopefully best meets your needs in talking about your work. So this is about 1-page single space is the writing the writing space that is allowed for this first question, and you can address it by titling it A, B, C, and D, or you can just do a block text and sort of move between those questions. So long as you fully answer all of the questions, the formatting is yours to do with as you see fit. In the accountable piece, this is how is your organizational accountable to the community it serves. Again, just a text box, and then this download leadership and constituency form, which looks like this. We ask for this form, again, just as a snapshot to see, does your organization, who are the beneficiaries of your work? So to get an idea of, are the beneficiaries of your work predominantly women? Are they predominantly Native women living in frontier areas? So it gives us a snapshot of who the beneficiaries are. And then we can look at active volunteers, staff, and board members, sort of moving back from that. Do your active volunteers reflect in some capacity the beneficiaries of your program? Does your staff in some capacity reflect the beneficiaries of your program? And then do your board members reflect in some capacity the beneficiaries of your program? This is not, organizations really are across the board on their ability to complete this form. Lots of organizations don't collect this information quite intentionally. Some organizations are quite small and all volunteer based, and they know exactly who all of their board members and active volunteers are, and can fill this form out with a lot of confidence. It's just going to vary. So happy to answer any questions about this particular tool in our conversation. And then comes the section where you just mention your collaborations. You just put the name in, a brief description of how you collaborate with them, what the purpose of the collaboration is. And then this piece is our sort of our work plan narrative. How will you accomplish the stated goals or objectives? Describe your activities, share a little about the key leaders, and then share a brief overview of your fundraising plan and or other resources. I've placed in the application the estimated sort of length. This sort of helps to know the emphasis of each section of the question. I think just a quick snapshot of who the leaders are, just a quick snapshot of your fundraising plan. It does not need to be too detailed, but having an idea of what your thinking is around that is helpful to us in thinking about the feasibility of your work plan. And then annual budget and project budget, if applicable, you can upload those there. And then equitable, again, is just the question that we've already discussed. Basic paragraph style answer for that one. And that is it for the application. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen